I do this for my father, who I've only seen from time to time in my dreams. I do this for you. I do this for my mother, who's finally clean, no longer a fan. I do this for you.
What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to be talking about weapons I believe that should return in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019. These guns are going to be very specific because it's mostly one gun, and if you guys want me to add more weapons from other Call of Duties that I think should return, tell me and I'll do that. But one of the weapons I think that needs to absolutely return is the Vector. Last time we saw a Vector, like a true Vector, was Call of Duty Ghosts, which is what you're seeing here. But if we're gonna go off of like the design factor of what it is, the last time we saw it was the Karma 45 within Infinite Warfare, which is 4 years old. And I think about it, that's a long time ago. That was the last time we saw a Vector style weapon, and I think it is long overdue to see one. The Vector is probably one of the coolest weapons because it's very interesting the way it looks and works. It looks like a space gun, especially. And with the gunsmith and the way the weapon game works, I think the Vector would be really well, because there's really long barrels you can put on it. There are a bunch of scopes, a bunch of stocks. You can do a lot of interesting things within the gunsmith to change small things on a Vector, and I think it'd work really well. One of the best things about it is I believe that you could have the version I'm running in Ghost, the CRB, because it looks a little bit nicer, it looks a little bit cleaner, but then you have the MW2 version or the Black Ops 2 version you could also run. Which, if I was to choose one, I would run with the CRB, just because it's the most modern looking one, and it's the coolest looking one in my opinion. And I think it'd be a great idea to return for gunsmith reasons. The way it sounds is just, oh, I love it. The gun itself is made by Chris. Chris is a manufacturing company which made the Vector, and they made a couple other weapons. They also just released a 22 LR, which is a 22 caliber, it's a smaller caliber. But that's realistic and that's real life, and I don't need to mention it. But the thing is, no modern games have had a Vector. Battlefield 4 never had one. I think Battlefield Hardline did. But many games don't have these, and I think it's a mistake, because the Vector is such an interesting weapon that I think a lot of people would love to see it return. I honestly thought that the Vector would return. They added a bunch of weapons that I didn't think would return, such as the PP-19 Bison, or the PP-90 M1 from MW3. They added a bunch of weapons from older games that I never thought would ever return, because they don't really have any gunsmith capabilities, but a Vector would, in my opinion. One of the coolest things about this is I feel like if you did add the Vector into Modern Warfare, that it would work well. It would work with the maps. Imagine Shipment. Imagine that map, or Rust, or any of these other maps that are small, that would work with a new SMG that has high damage and a high rate of fire, but can also be inaccurate. You can make it really inaccurate, where it's really useful for point blank, and it's really useful just to get enemies with them. And you could do a lot of small things to make the gun work in the sandbox. One of the other things I wanted to say about this weapon returning into the game, and other weapons returning into the game, is they need to start picking weapons that are new but familiar. What I mean by this is a Vector would be a new weapon. We haven't seen a Vector in a while. The Vector's only been in 3 Call of Duty games, and it's been different in every single one. The M4 has been the same throughout every Modern Warfare game pretty much, and has been in the AK's been in many Call of Duty games. Whether it's the AK-12 version, whether it's the AN-94 version from Black Ops 2, we've seen it in a lot of games. We've only seen a Vector 3 times, but yet we've seen many other weapons multiple times. I mean, it just doesn't make much sense, in my opinion. There's so many things you can do within Call of Duty itself, within the new Modern Warfare title, that I think would work quite well with many weapons returning, such as the Honey Badger. You can currently make a Honey Badger out of the Kilo M13 or M4, but it's not the same. It doesn't feel the same. Same with the Remington. You can basically make the Remington R5 as the M4, but it's not the same. You can make the M27 in the game as an M4 with 60 rounds, but it's not the same. And I think there's a lot of weapons that need to be added, because currently I find myself using 4 weapons. Either the weapon I'm going for Damascus with, an MP5, an MP7, or an M4. And occasionally an HDR whenever I need to snipe. 5 weapons out of how many that I'm using in the sandbox? Like, it's not that many. Because once I get Damascus and on all the DLC weapons, I never touch the DLC weapons. Because the best guns in the game are all base weapons. There's no reason to run DLC weapons other than to get them camos and to maybe see, how it is and if you like it. But there's no reason to run it. And I think that's one of the biggest issues within Modern Warfare that minigames don't have when they have a bunch of weapons, but that only 5 stand out. That's what World at War had happened. World War II had happened. World War II didn't have that many weapons, but it had 4 good ones, and that's all people ran with. The STG, the FG, the BAR, and the freaking PPSH. Other than that, not many people ran other weapons, because it was just stupid of you to run other guns, because why would you? Call of Duty Ghosts had a bunch of weapons that have never returned. The Remington R5, the MTAR hasn't returned. We've had a TAR, which I guess the Ram 7 is the TAR, MTAR basically, if you can make it that way. Which I don't use the Ram, so I wouldn't know, but there's not many weapons that have returned from the game, and weapons that should return. Weapons like the Honey Badger, the Remington, the Vector, they've been a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and we've never seen them. And I think it's a big missed opportunity to not have certain weapons from other games. Now, one of the biggest things I think that you could counter-argue what I'm saying with me saying, hey, I think these weapons should all be here, is I think that within Modern Warfare, certain stuff doesn't work. Okay, certain design elements do not work. Like, certain things don't flow right. There's certain weapons that I don't think will work. Weapons like the M27 with thermal scope wouldn't work, because thermal legitimately makes everything in Ghost and in Modern Warfare no recoil, and you can see everything. And I think that's one of the things that people don't realize about Call of Duty Modern Warfare is that there's a lot of things from Ghost that have returned. The SATCOM is legitimately the personal radar. But the personal radar is worse because it gives away your position and it only does little pings on the map. It doesn't show you exactly where they are like a regular UAV would. I think that's some big missed opportunities within the game, and I think it needs to be credited that Call of Duty is not the same anymore. And it won't be for a while, because Modern Warfare is a great stepping stone, but there isn't enough variety to make it good. I mean, games like Advanced Warfare didn't have this issue. Black Ops 3, once the XMC, has this issue. BO4 has this issue. COD World War II has this issue. Every game has this issue, but when I went back and played Modern Warfare 3 Ghosts, I see the same guns being used, but I also see every other weapon being used. I see certain weapons that I would never touch, like an Amelie, the Remington, the Honey Badger to an extent, being used. And I don't ever really use those, because I use mostly SMGs and the weapons that the pros use, like Vectors, MTARs, 27s, Bulldogs. You see those used because this is what the pros used back in the day. And I think that's something that needs to be accredited, that no one uses specific weapons anymore. They're all the same gun. There's no variety anymore. And variety is the spice of life, right? And with Call of Duty Ghosts, it has that. But Modern Warfare doesn't. And I'm giving Ghost a lot of credit, because I did not like this game when it first came out, and I never played it. Boy, do I regret that, because this game, now that I see what CODs became, is fucking amazing. For me, like, it's not a bad game. It works pretty well, and it flows well. The maps are formless. Yes, they're not very good. I'll be the first to tell you. They're not the greatest maps in the world, don't get me wrong. But they're also not like Modern Warfare, where it's like only 4 maps out of the entire rotation are decent. And that's at best. Like, I don't enjoy 6v6 maps. I'm not the biggest fan of Ramaza. I like Grozna and I like the Gunrunner maps. I like specific maps, but they're not very... all the maps I enjoy aren't that good. But in Ghost, they have a lot of decent maps that flow well with Sandbox. The Vector has its uses, the Remington has its uses, and Sniping has their uses in certain maps. And they're all good because every weapon fits Sandbox, unlike Modern Warfare. The Vector fills a purpose. Every weapon fills a purpose, right? That's the way it should work. Most weapons in Ghost fill a purpose. The Vector is my favorite gun Because, well, I think it's just badass looking. I think it's the coolest gun we've ever seen. Okay, I think the Vector is the coolest gun we've ever seen. But that is just my opinion. You guys can think what you want to think. Let me know in the comments below if you did enjoy this game, and if you would love to see weapons from past Call of Duty's return, like the Vector or the Remington or certain other weapons. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you guys did enjoy it, please do drop it a like. It'd be greatly appreciated. Tell me what your favorite part of the video was. That helps out a lot. Tell me what you enjoyed, what you disliked. Those always help too. With that out of the way, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.